Welcome to the Calling All Messengers podcast, where we help you clarify who you are and why you are as a Christ-centered messenger. Join us as we share key insights and processes that will encourage and empower you to reach your tribe. Now listen in with your host, certified life purpose coach and messenger midwife, Tarika Facion, and online business strategist and resident messenger, Lakeisha Gates.
We want to welcome you all back to the Calling All Messengers podcast, and we are so excited today. We've been moving through the 7 guiding questions that every messenger must answer if they're going to effectively reach our tribe. And today we are on question number 5, the messenger's tribe. So let's see what we're talking about with that. So when we talk about the messenger's tribe, we're saying, who are your people? What are they struggling with? What are they needing on their journey? And what has God given you to give to them so that they can experience the transformation that he has for them? And so with every episode, guys, we talk about why this question. So for this one, we're talking about, it's great last week that you've embraced your uniqueness. Now it's time to understand who your tribe is so the journey can be truly shared. You were drawn to these folks for a reason. So take the time to really get to know who they are and what they need. So though you are their entrusted messenger, that means little if there is no tribe to receive all the wisdom you have to share. It is important that you truly see them because it's much harder to be remiss or indifferent when you have seen their faces and have heard their hearts cry. So we're encouraging you to prepare to be the best for them because their whole life can depend on the transformation that you have to offer. So that's the question that we have as written. So let's get into the heart of it because a lot of us we know that we have a passion for something. We know that there's some things that we want people to know because as a messenger, they're saying that you're haunted by vision. We already are saying that you're looking around and that you see a people struggling with something and you know that they could benefit from the wisdom that God has given you to share with them. So we're asking you to paint a picture. So many times we have these statistics. 90% of kids in the inner city will either drop out or end up in jail, but we just see statistics and we don't see faces. We're at a loss of how we can personally reach them, if that makes sense. So we're asking you guys today to really begin to think about if God has tapped you on the shoulder. We talked about the message giver at the beginning of this. If God has given you this message, who is he calling you to bring it to? And when you're creating this ideal tribe member profile, so to speak, I want you to be free to recognize that doesn't mean that somebody who fits outside of this description, I can't reach you because you're not in the inner city, you're in suburbia. That's not what we're saying. This is saying to at least paint a picture so that when these folks begin to come into your life, there's something in your heart that just knows these are my people. So I would be remiss if I didn't share on the other side of this, you guys. I have my co-host with me here, Lakeisha Gates. And Keisha, is there anything that you want to chime in on just about the importance of understanding who your tribe is? And I believe you went through a couple renditions of like who your tribe was, and it's only gotten more and more refined with time. So what has been your process of clarifying your ideal tribe member? You always see those memes like where it started and now we're here. Like what has been the evolution for you?
Tarika, thank you for the introduction. Tarika Facion, the head messenger and co-host of the Calling All Messengers podcast. The process for me is always something that I live into in my own life is you just figure it out as you go. I think when we first started this whole process, I knew the type of person, right? A general type of person that I thought that would be the ideal tribe member for me. But as time goes on and the more you get out there and serve, and the more you get out there amongst the people, the clearer you are on your message and how you're sharing that message and how you're serving with that message, the clearer you get about your tribe. But it starts with the idea of, I believe this is the people that I'm called to reach, and really taking a step back to say, who's coming to me already for what I do? And I know I'm in the business realm, but we're not talking about just business. We're talking about life. You may be in ministry. You may be a teacher. You may be a mother. You may be a clerk at the grocery store. Wherever it is that God has called you to show up, there's a people there that need to hear the message that God has given you.
What's key about that too is when we talked about the question on the mess and the mandate, we talked about what have you gone through or been through that now makes you want to share some of those solutions and some of those processes with others. So one thing that we have really found is that our ideal tribe member will look a lot like us, like who we were 2 and 3 years ago, like when we were in the midst of the process. Not necessarily always the case, because one thing we talked about was like, It may be something directly that you went through or something that you may have gone through, and now you are feeling this fire to become an advocate in a certain arena. So again, we always want to make sure that we're being sensitive to who God is calling us to, so that we can stand on our post. And so one of the things that I had to realize was I would get so excited about wanting people to be clear about, who they are and why they are. And I just felt like everybody was like a low-key messenger. And so I would try to bring these clarifying resources to people. And then I would just realize, they'd be like, Tarika, it's like you're talking 80 miles per hour, but I'm only in the 30 mile per hour zone. So I had to realize, as much as my discernment gift can look at people and see they are emerging messengers, I have to wait till they say yes. I had to realize that when I was talking about the messengers who are ready for the process, that they were haunted by vision. They were these transformational leaders with a wealth of knowledge and life experience to share, that they felt a burden that now was the time. And so what happens is, when you begin to write down these characteristics of your ideal tribe member, it will allow you to hear the language when they're coming. So when they're coming and they're saying things to you like, I know that I feel like I have this burden or this message that God has given me to share, and I want to share it, my radar will go ding, 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 messenger alert. Or if I see someone who knows that they've been created for a purpose and it's a burden now, then I know that they are willing to walk through all of the equipping exercises that can be pretty weighty that we have in the messenger experience. But I had to get very clear. I knew that they had to be in the legacy phase of life, because it's sometimes very difficult to go through all of this work to go reach a whole other people when you feel like your babies are 2 and 3 and you haven't had a chance to really deal with their formation, if that makes sense. So for you, Keisha, what's some of the language that you hear? And when you hear it, you're like, there's my people.
I know when I first started, it was, I need to get my life together. So like, I'm going to call Keisha because she can help me get my life together. And that's when I was just starting out as a life coach. But the more and more clear and more targeted that I've become over these years, it's more than just helping them get their life together. They're looking at me because of the confidence that I'm exuding. Mm-hmm. And they want to have that same confidence, and they want to be directed. And so I'll hear them say things like, I know you can help me with this. Even if I don't have these services, they just automatically assume that I do. And it's can you help me with setting up my business? Can you help me with coming up with language for my social media? And these are things that I'm not going to raise my hand and say I'm an expert in. They're like, anybody that can help with this. What they find out once they get behind the scenes is I really am emboldening them with the confidence that they need in order to continue to move forward. Because I'm not one of those people who I don't want to be the tribal leader forever. I want them to be emboldened to be their own tribal leader. And so I know it's almost like my person is like a Nicodemus. They're going to come the back way because they're probably out there leading in some capacity, and they feel like that there's spaces that need to be filled, these skills that need to be filled, these gaps that need to be filled, that they can't really say, I don't know how to do this, because then the people who are following them currently are not going to have the confidence in them. And so they come back ways through me and say, well, Keisha, can you help me with this? Or I need to build my skill in this. And how do I do this? And as a leader, you'd be surprised how hard it is to have someone to ask those questions to, because you're expected to have all the answers. And so my folks just automatically they assume, I'm not sure. Now I'm talking this out loud. I'm not sure why they think that, but they just assume that I'm going to have the answer, or they know that if I don't, I'm going to figure it out. I actually don't know if that was a question that you asked, but.
No, that's good. What you were saying about people have seen or been around you enough to know that your attitude is one of, if we don't know, then let's go figure it out, because you despise excuses. So it's like, it's something that God has called us to do, then there has to be a way. And it's almost like you're not going to rest until every stone is unturned or till we get some clarity about this. So that's a very good point that Keisha said about sometimes we're trying to get clear on who our tribe is, but we can also look at who's coming to us, because people come to you for what you hold, not what you don't. Another thing too is people who are in relationship with you will have such clarity about who you are that when they're talking to someone and they hear that person's challenge or problem or need, they'll say, ooh, you need to go talk to Keisha about that. Or if anybody's dealing with identity or trying to clarify purpose or vision, they'll say, oh, you need to, tap in with Tarika on that. God has made it in such a way that it's not a mystery, because we literally exude and ooze knows who God has made us to be if we will do the clarifying work and really sharpen what it is he's given us to share. But it really is important to get clear. I tell people one of my criteria is that messengers love metaphors. I'm going to give you guys a metaphor right now. When I ask people, when they're like, well, I don't know who my people are, I'm just like, well, if you were a superhero, who would you be willing to put on that suit to go and save? Well, women. Like, nope, you got 15 seconds to make a choice to go and save this group. And it was so funny. This one young lady, when we just kept narrowing it down, she's like, well, I would help middle school girls who are trying to compete professionally in ice skating that are African-American. I'm just like, wow, because she had been an ice skater and it was so difficult to break into that. And some of the mental stuff that you go through trying to break into spaces that are not typically represented by your group, as it were. So it's like, sometimes we don't want to get that specific because we feel like I'm just called to help everybody. Whoever God puts me in front of, that's who I want to help. But sometimes that gets us off the hook to prepare for people. So if Keisha is saying that I want to help people to start their online businesses or to get their entrepreneurial lives together, if she didn't make that distinction, there wouldn't have been ownership to say, I need to go and get certified as a business consultant and understand how to do customer maps and understand the basics of business and all these different things. So her tribe still would not have gotten the detailed help that she's giving to get that part of their lives together. So when you get really clear about who you're called to reach, so it could be the single mother who is trying to navigate the school system with an IEP or whatever the case may be. Well, I guess I better learn what an IEP is. I guess I better learn what some of the school systems are. Maybe I should show up at some board meetings so my voice can have some resonance. So what I want us to understand that it's not enough to say, these are the people that I want to help. Moses was a very strategic choice, who was raised in the palace, but who was also of the same heritage of the children of Israel. So your education and the things that you're learning and the people that you're surrounding yourself with, all of that is part of the arsenal. So Keisha, I don't know if you want to elaborate just on some of the spaces that God put you in to build up your toolbox so that you could be more of a leader and a resource to your people. I know you've already alluded to some things, but is there anything that you're just like, why am I doing this? Oh, because I see how this is going to help my people on their journey a little bit more.
I like to say that I've invested a lot of money
yes
to make sure that I'm prepared and equipped to serve my people. Every time I'd call Tariq and I'm like, does this make any sense? I feel like this is going opposite direction of where I say that I wanted to go. But every course that I've taken, every life coaching certification or corporate consulting certification, all have led me to be in a position to serve my tribe. And it's interesting because a point that I wanted to drive home is that there's a difference between what you're skilled at versus what you're called to do, what you're gifted at doing. Because I say all the time, people come to me for questions about decorating. People come to me for questions about doing, when my daughter was younger, doing her hair. But that's just something that I'm skilled at. If you want to start talking to me about my gifting and my gifting to be able to see things strategically and help people streamline those thoughts, those swirling thoughts that are going around in their head, that's the thing that I will pursue a course for. That's the thing that I will pursue a certification for. That's the thing that I'm going to be willing to take on these partnerships and relationships with other people for, because I know that it's different than what I'm skilled at. So I wanted to bring up that distinction because sometimes people are like, oh, I'm good at that. Yes, you're good at that, but is that what you're called to? And if you look at your skills, your talents, your gifts, your abilities, all those things, there's probably a common denominator in them all. Again, when somebody comes to me and says, Keisha, can you help me make a collage wall? They know that I'm going to figure out how to answer that question for them. They know that if they call me and say, what baubles can I get for my daughter's hair? And how do you do the parts? Or what's some different styles? They know that I'm going to find a YouTube video or I'm going to send them some pictures. Same thing with my business. They know, my clients know that if we're going to have a conversation about needing to get through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, each one of those steps, they're going to have an outline of how they can get from beginning to end, because they know that I'm going to figure it out for them. So I wanted to make that distinction, because what we're talking about is your gifting. What we're talking about is your purpose. We're not talking about you being skilled at something. We're not talking about you going to church and serving as the children's ministry leader because you want to help. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about you going to church and you serving as a children's ministry leader because you know you have a heart for those babies. You want to see that the seed is planted for them early on so that when they grow up, they should never depart from him. There's a difference between the I just want to help to this is who I'm called for. This is who I'm called to.
That is rich. I heard it said so much that Jesus had all the potential in the world, but it's like it wasn't about him living into all of his potentialities. It was about him living into his purpose. Because once they realize what you're capable of, then and people see what your abilities are, you're going to get invitations out of the woodwork. Can you help with this? Can you help with that? Now, the distinction that Keisha made was if I can help you and shoot you a resource, I'm going to do that. But what she's not going to do is make a program around it or a whole teaching around it, because it's nothing to say, oh yeah, I have the ability to help someone with this, so I will do that. But if he's told me to be on my way to Bethlehem, then I can help on my way to Bethlehem to the degree that it's not going to make me miss my appointment there. So we want to empower you to recognize that sometimes we as Christians absolutely can have that guilty complex because he has given us so many talents and abilities that we can do so many different things. But just because we can, what is he actually calling us to do? And that's one of the key reasons that we say create your ideal tribe member profile, because once you see their faces, once you see their face, you cannot unsee it again. So when you're just like, I'm just about to go about my business and do this and that, you hear Brianna calling you, saying that she needs help with this and that. So when we talk about clarifying who your tribe member is, it's understanding what are they struggling with? What do they fear is true about their situation? What keeps them up at night? Because you can feel like, I don't know if you guys have ever experienced this, but you work with someone and you know that they got graduate level understanding, but you're still like, I'm still taking baby steps. I'm still in preschool, and they try to throw all that information at you and you can't even begin to process it. So we're saying and this is something that I'm still learning, you guys, as a messenger, we have to understand, are they ready for meat or do they still need milk? And if they still need milk, Lord, show me how to be patient and to administer or dispense this transformation in doses and portions that they can handle. Because it's not about how great we are or how vast our knowledge base is. If we can't get the transformation to our people, then what point is it really? And sometimes I don't think it's a matter of us trying to be like, oh, I'm just so great. It's just, we just been sitting in this information for so long that we just assume that people know things that they just may not know. So I don't want to assume that everything is, I've been certified, so you need to get where I am. I don't think that's necessarily the case, but I do believe that I know I have been guilty of this because I've been in this identity and purpose space for so long. I will just spout off things as if, oh, people know this already. And just having to step back and be reminded that that's not necessarily the case. Can you imagine like someone having their bachelor's or their master's in education, and then now you're going to teach a kindergarten class and they could care less about all of your theories? It's like, I need to just learn how to pronounce this word phonetically. So it can be very humbling, but it's required, because if you really are trying to bring them along for them to experience the healing and the hope that you have for them, then you have to meet them where they are. And Keisha, I heard you talk about sharing. If I got them going through 4 steps, I'm going to do all of that. Now, do they get frustrated with that when you're like, now we're going to assume that I'm talking to a first grader? What has been your experience with mapping out all of the steps and people thinking they got it and then realizing, no, really, I don't?
Oh, yeah. Especially in this world, in this day and age, everybody wants a template. Everybody wants, how can I do this quickly? And the process that I go through is not quick. It really isn't. And you could try to get through it fast. You could try to get through steps 1 through 10 in a week. But the reality of it is that you're going to end up having to go back and redo what it is that you were attempting to do. Quite honestly, that's a hard selling point for me. It's like, I'm going to invite you into this 6-month process. You may not even make $1 in those first 6 months, but will you lay the foundation for a business that you will have for the next 25, 30 years? And so, no, it's definitely a struggle. And it's definitely another reason why you have to get very, very clear on who it is that your tribe is. Because I could say that I'm targeting a Black woman between the ages of 35 to 45. She's middle class. She probably makes about $75,000 to $100,000 a year. She has a couple of kids. She likes to travel and all those things. But is that going to drive her? Is that the thing that's going to drive her? Or the thing that's going to drive her be she has a passion to fight for what's right in the world. She has this passion deep down to act when called upon. She knows that she's here for a reason. She understands her greater responsibility. She dislikes when people are inauthentic and not true to themselves and have bad intentions. So she'll fight for that. And she wants to serve and do it well. So you see the difference between these demographics, the difference between having a demographic list of who your ideal tribe member is. And you really start getting into the psychographics of what are they passionate about. That's the difference. Those psychographic details that helps me understand if this person is going to be willing to be in it for the long haul. Because if I can point back to this, they know that they're doing it for a reason. I've had clients who have a heart for dogs. They have a passion for dogs. So that is their tribe. They have to go through the dog owner to get to the dogs, but ultimately they care and they are passionate about the health and the longevity of those owners' dogs. I have clients who are organizers who they want to see people walk in their home and have peace. That is what they're passionate about. And so if I don't have that conversation with them about their tribe, and if it doesn't resonate, if they're not as passionate about that, they don't want to see this change, if they don't want to fight for what is right in the world, then I know they're probably not the right fit for me.
That's good, Keisha. So here would be a good place to make a distinction, because I had another peer that I'm in a group with, and she asked the question like, Trika, how do I know if someone is my tribe versus my client? You know, sometimes we have these businesses where we may provide a service, and in those services, we can help any number of people, even though there still may be some ideal clients. But I want to make the distinction that when we're talking about tribes, I'm referring to you feel like God has tapped you on the shoulder and there's a people you are going on a journey of transformation with. Now, I can make a website for someone, wanting them to have their website done to get before their tribe, but after we're done with that process, then they have their site and they're on their way. Versus messengers, we're tied together for life. So I definitely want to make that distinction, because I don't want to be like, well, I can't help people who, you know, don't fit within my description. So just use wisdom and talk to the Lord about what it is you're doing and what juncture of life you're in.
Because it's something you said earlier about if you don't target someone, you're not targeting anyone. And what happens is that we say that if this person doesn't fit this model, the fact of the matter is that that one person that you're targeting is going to help you reach all the other people that you're not targeting. But if you're not specific in calling and speaking the language of that target tribe member, then you will never be in a place to have impact or influence over all these other folks. So it's not about saying, no, I can't serve them. Because like you said, there's a difference between working with going deep versus going wide. And there's going to be some tribe members that you're called to go wide with, but they're going to be those ones that you know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you're called to go deep with.
And you really will have this sense that these are my people. And I had to learn that process as well. One of the things that's challenging about this whole process, and I know that Keisha can speak to this, we both live this process out, is when you have people who you know are your people, but they don't know that they need what you have. They will continue to bump their heads against the wall because it's like, I'm just going to pray my way through. I'm just going to praise my way through, not realizing that God calls all of us to these times of preparation and times of facing things. So I just want to encourage you guys that just because you get clear and like, oh, I know who my people are, and you start targeting them, sometimes you may not always get the initial response that you're looking for. But I just want you to be encouraged, because if you are continually showing up, if you're continually sharing in whatever capacity God has given you, to keep sharing your message, when they get tired of bumping their head against the wall, so don't get dissuaded. Because sometimes we're like, I'm trying to share a Facebook post or an Instagram post and I'm getting like 1 like or 2 likes. But I'm saying if we disparage the 1 or 2 people that are engaging, because the thing is, some people just may not be ready for you right now, but they will be ready 6 months from now or a year from now. But if you have not been consistently finding ways to show up in the manners that God has called you to show up, they won't know where to find you. So Keisha, it sounded like you were wanting to jump in.
Oh, I was just going to say that is my Achilles heel.
How so?
Because I see so much in people, and it's just like, if you would just commit to the process. But that's also a distinction of being a messenger versus feeling like you're skilled at doing this or that, is that we understand that God's timing is perfect. And we understand that in this season, we may be called to plant to help nurture that seed. For somebody else, they may be there to till the ground or water it or prune the leaves back. but we are in partnership with God with it, because ultimately, just like he tapped Moses on the shoulder and said, I need you to go to these people. That's the same thing he's essentially doing for us. We get the opportunity to partner with God to serve a specific group of people that he's called us to reach. I mean, I feel like what an honor. And our only responsibility is to hone in on who these people are and be aware and seek him so that we know, is this person that I'm supposed to be working with? And even those folks who you're like, ooh, how did I happen up on them? I believe that he's called us to them as well, because just like we are somebody else's tribal leader, we are God's tribe. We are his tribe. So he's leading us, he's guiding us. So we ought to go to him for direction so that then we can go on and disciple. Really, when you think about it, it's just discipleship. It's another way to say discipleship. How are we discipling those others in the way that he said, they need this from you? I need you to go forth and do that on my behalf.
That's excellent. That's why we led with the message giver as question number one. Because the thing is, this is not going to be a process where we're going to always, or if ever, consult our feelings. Moses was not chomping at the bit to go face Pharaoh, to go get the children of Israel, who could have probably cared less about Moses. All they wanted was to be relieved from their oppressor. So you may have a people who don't even know that they need or that they want you. They just want to be out of whatever predicament or situation or oppression that they are in. So that's why we have to get so immersed in that one with the Father, because the very people sometimes that you may be trying to help may be, why are you even here? You should have left us alone.
Well, it's because of that fear. When we think about the children of Israel, they were like, well, at least back in Egypt, we had this. And at least back in Egypt, we had that. The fact of the matter is that they have fears. They have doubts. I know my people struggle with self-doubt. They have this constant need for affirmation because it's like, am I doing the right thing? Am I going in the right direction? And that's that confidence piece that I was talking about. So I recognize that in them, that constant need for affirmation. That even gives me even more fire and passion to embolden them with the confidence they need so that they don't always look for affirmation from somebody else, because that'll get you caught up. My person also has a fear of the unknown. They're like, you want me to do what? I've never done that before. What does that even look like? And sometimes the sheer magnitude of the call, because remember, my people are leaders. So they're looking at, oh my gosh, I'm supposed to be speaking in front of 30,000 people. What does that even look like? I'm afraid. And so it's that fear. And so they're struggling with things. You have to take those things into consideration as well. I'm sure Moses, who ran away for 40 years to go back into the palace of the place that he had been chased out of, there had to be some fear there, but he knew that he could do it because God was with him.
What you hit on, and just in fairness to every messenger, you have to recognize that your tribe is going to be dealing with some sort of mindset stuff. Because the thing is, why would we need liberation? Why would we need deliverance? Why would we need a Moses if there wasn't some sort of oppression or some sort of slavery mindset that has to be upended? So that's why we can't grow faint of heart, because we are, metaphorically speaking, we are taking our tribe through their own wilderness experience because we know that there's a promised land that God has for them. And this is another thing, and we'll talk about this when we get to our transformational models and processes, but you have to be willing to go through whatever it is that you're trying to take your own tribe members through. It is disingenuous, and it's going to be smelled out instantly if you're telling them that they need to take these steps to come out of the wilderness, and it hasn't been something you've been willing to do or continue to go through the renovation of the mind process and the renewing of the minds. We have to get with the message giver. We have to be the beneficiary of our own transformation so that when we do speak out and reach to our tribe, there's some authority there. So anything that Keisha is asking her tribe to do by way of not skipping steps, by following all the processes, I guarantee you she's taken herself through it at least 96 times herself before she asks it of us. It's almost like people are saying, like, I don't want to do this, but I seen that you're doing it, so I guess then. So I just want to encourage us. We have to have some moral authority in this thing. So if I'm telling messengers that you have to be clear and you have to do the I am work, I guarantee you, just because we've laid out 3 or 4 or 5 processes, that's not the extent of my learning on that. That's not the extent of my seeking on that. But I can't overwhelm with everything, but I am forever the student in that area, so that whenever God gives me any sort of platform or opportunity to share, I'm gonna leak a little bit on you. So I just want to encourage you, whatever it is that you were saying you want for your tribe, continue to be an example of that, a beneficiary of it. And that's powerful to me, because if you want it for your tribe, then that already tells me that God wanted it for you, because he gave you the tools and the keys to now go bring it to your tribe.
And Jesus did it for us. The Bible says that we don't have a high priest who does not understand what we've been through. So if Jesus, our Lord and Savior, said, I can clothe myself in flesh and feel and experience and go through life to understand, to have the empathy to plead to the Father on your behalf, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you have to go through the same thing?
When you talk about empathy, I think sometimes when we have been so far removed from something, you experience victory over something 20 years ago, it's almost like you could forget what it felt like when you were in the thick of that thing. So it's almost like God is saying, don't forget what it felt like. Because sometimes we may see people who are struggling with who they are, or their identity. And I just want you to know who you are. And it's like, well, Trika, you didn't just get there overnight. Like there was some midnight hour stuff. There was some wrestling stuff. There was some internal tension there. So it's almost like he's saying, don't forget the anatomy of what you went through, because that's where you're getting the keys from, to share with them that they can experience the transformation that God in his grace allowed you to experience. So let's never get too far removed from what we've been through that we can't remember the angst that they feel, the confusion that they feel, the overwhelm that they feel. Now, that doesn't mean that we're still saying like, okay, it took me 20 years because I was trying to figure a lot of this stuff out on my own. But what we're telling our tribe is, if you will allow me to take you by the hand, it won't have to take you 20 years. Yes, there's still a process. Yes, there's still mindset stuff that we have to go through. So I'm not saying just have a disposition where you're like, oh, okay, it's okay for you just to wallow in it because we all go through. It's like, no, your story doesn't have to read like my story. If you will take what God has given me, then there's some areas that he can shorten the learning curve for you. So that's what I'm so thankful about it. I've seen messengers who deal with grief. So they have some tools and things to give to people that will allow you to process and face things a lot sooner versus you looking up 30 years later and you're still in the same place.
Well, it's the awareness. It's the awareness of it. And I think that we'll all have our something that we have to overcome. I use this, for example, there's an app on Google that when you're taking directions, when you're following GPS, it'll let you know like approaching officer or approaching accident or approaching such and such. And you may have taken that road 20,000 times, but wouldn't you want to know if there's a tire blowout ahead of you so that you can make the proper provisions to merge over into the right-hand lanes? So that's what getting help, allowing a messenger. So this is for those people who are part of a tribe. So allowing that person to provide you with the wisdom to say, now you can make the decision on what you want to do, because I can't make you do that. Right. But I'm at least going to say caution, alert, be aware of, so that you have the opportunity to say, I'm either going to just not take heed or I am going to take heed. It may take me just a little bit longer because I have to take a little detour, but it ain't going to take me as long as it might have if I didn't.
So messengers, emerging messengers, if you don't take anything else away from today, we want you to understand is this is all a journey. This is not some call 1-800, order your messenger toolkit, figure out your message, 5 things to describe your tribe. This is something you have to know that God is calling you to, because of these very people that you are desiring to lead, to be a help to. They may receive it, may not, whatever the case may be, but your commitment is, regardless of their yes or no, or maybe, Lord, my answer is yes, and I'm going to continue to show up. I'm going to continue to provide resources if that's the route that God is calling me to take. So as much as we're saying, who are your people? Let's get very clear. These are God's people.
That's right.
That he's giving you responsibility to and responsibility for. So that should be freeing, because if I recognize that they are God's people and he's just giving me a temporary earthly assignment for, then I can talk to God about his people. Lord, your people need to get equipped, Lord. They need to know who they are. They need to know why they are. They need to do. And that's freeing, because that allows you to show up and to give what God is calling you to give, and then to take your hands off of it. There's something freeing in knowing that I am here because a burden has been placed on me and I'm doing what my Father has asked me to do. And I am not here to control anyone or anything. And I can sleep well at night because I know that I've done what the Father has called me to do. So Keisha, before we wrap up, is there anything that you would want to leave them with, that if they don't take away anything else, what should they take away from understanding who their tribe is and what this journey is going to look like?
If you know that you're a messenger, don't run. We've seen that doesn't end well. And just to remember, like Tarika said, you're not doing this alone. We are in partnership with God. He is with us. One of my favorite poems, and actually one of my late grandma's favorite poems, poems was Footprints in the Sand. It basically describes, I see these footprints, but when I made it to like some of my hardest time, I only see one set of footprints. And God responds and said, that's because I was carrying you. And so in an effort for us to want to strive, like we want to strive for excellence, right? We have to remember we don't have to, because we serve a God who is carrying us along this journey while we're helping the people that he's called us to help and to serve.
That is good stuff. So I hope that you all are encouraged, that you are reminded that once again, this all starts from the message giver, and everything else from there is part of the laying out of the blueprint that God has for you. So until we meet again to cover the next question, we want to say just be encouraged, and your tribe is waiting.